All right, today we got Zach and Dave from Mae, one of our favorite bands of all time, at least for me. I think last time we chatted, it was like a couple years ago at this point. I don't remember who I told it. Maybe it was just you, Zach, or maybe it was you, Dave. I don't remember who I mentioned this to. But when I was in 5th grade, I first heard the song Suspension for the first time, okay? And I also got a first act guitar that same year. The first song I tried to figure out and learn on the guitar, at least the first like guitar riff I tried to learn on the guitar on my first act guitar, was Suspension by Mae. And so that will Mae, is great. You guys are an incredible band, wonderful. We've loved your entire discography, but also that's like my personal connection to Mae and will always be to Mae is that you guys were the first. Really wrote the first song to the first song that I tried to learn on my first act guitar.
And what's funny about that is he still doesn't know how to play guitar. So
yes. So you guys clearly Mae did not help me in any way, shape, or form. But yeah.
Well, next time we see you, we'll teach you the song.
That would be
work
great.
Work out those tablatures with you.
You'll be there for days trying to figure it out. How to teach him.
You might have to teach me how to pronounce things first before you teach me how to play guitar riffs.
That's the truth.
Cullen, do you have any personal fun stories to Mae?
Personal fun stories to Mae. It's actually my favorite band to listen to while I do dishes. There's so many profound things, cool. Some people, they get in the shower and they're like, all right, I'm going to have my thoughts to myself now. And they'll think about the profound. For me, it's when I'm doing dishes. Mm-hmm. I think Mae has just an absolute gold mine of profound things to say.
You're washing dishes.
Yeah, washing dishes. There's something about cleaning those dishes off that creates a profound self-reflection in my own heart. So that's my fun story. Yeah.
I feel like that's almost kind of like stories. A diss.
That's a diss? Why is that a diss? How is that a diss?
Like, out of all the things a band could be, the dishwashing band, I don't know if that's the band you want to be in the world.
Oh my, Mason. That's just awful.
That's the first we've heard of that. We haven't heard that one before. I don't know how to interpret it, but I interpret it positively.
I do too. I take it as a compliment.
I'm glad that you guys are more generous than I am.
Would you rather be my lovemaking band? Like,
yeah.
Well, aren't we that?
You might be. I mean, you could be. There's no reason you couldn't be.
100% could be.
I don't know.
Here's one of the things I've always wondered is, Cullen and I, we've released 140 episodes of this podcast.
Yeah.
Cullen, have you ever wondered this? Because I've wondered this. How many people have had sex while listening to our podcast?
Oh,
zero.
Because it's got to be
zero.
Okay, you think it's zero. I think it might be more than zero. But
other than you, I mean, I don't know.
But let's Zach and Dave, how many people do you think have had sex listening to a Mae song? It can't be zero.
No, I think it's a number high enough to say that we've got enough people that we've met that named their kids after us.
Right.
It's true.
It's got to be at least whatever that number is. It's got to be at least that number.
So is that like a conceiving name? They're like, we conceived you to a Mae song, therefore we're calling you Mae.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely heard that.
We also have a lot of people propose to one another during our shows on stage as well. So there are a lot of
these guys are like Taylor Swift.
If only a lot of nice intimate moments that people share with us and our fans. So I would imagine that it's happened.
A lot of people might give Tooth and Nail a lot of shit for a lot of reasons. I wouldn't be one of those people, but I could see why people would want to give Tooth and Nail shit. Here's one of the things you can't give Tooth and Nail shit about. Tooth and Nail signed a lot of emo bands during their heyday that are also names that everybody named their child after. Mae, Amberlyn, and Emery being probably the most well-known of those. How many other record labels had at least 3 bands where people were like, "Oh, I'm gonna literally name my child after this band."
Yeah,
Not
I'm gonna
too
name
many
my
record
kid. I'm
labels
gonna
can
name
claim
my
that.
next kid Further Seems Forever. So.
Maybe the Juliana
such
theory.
a cute little baby named
Juliana, yeah,
Underoath.
Juliana theory. That's a good one. Yeah.
Aw, little August Burns Red, so cute.
238. There's got to be a 238 up there somewhere, right?
I think Elon Musk is gonna do that one
Yeah,
next.
I was exactly the way he names kids. All right, we're getting besides the point. Let's talk about May. Let's talk about the upcoming Furnace Fest show. A few months ago, you guys were announced as one of the Furnace Fest bands. You guys played in 2021. Zach, we hung out for a hot second, knowing you were very busy that day. I think you had like a show before and a show after with like Demons. Or something along those lines. So you were a busy man that weekend, so you weren't able to hang out for super long. But you guys played in 2021, one of our favorite sets from 2021. Obviously, you guys are playing this year, but let's just talk about Furnace Fest and all of that. Okay, so you guys played 2021. What's the whole story around playing 2023? Was it as simple as you guys just got a DM on Instagram and were like, okay? Was it that simple, or is there more of a story to it?
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a story. Chad Johnson, who runs Furnace Fest and started it, I assume. He was May's A&R, one of our two A&R at Tooth and Nail back in 02, 03, 04, 05, 06.
Wow.
And Chad
really
started
during like kind of like the big like the years that because Everglow being during those years, and then the Destination being around that time, and so like those are big years for me.
Yeah, Chad is
Chad's connected to him.
Exactly. So Chad's one of the two people essentially who were at Tooth and Nail at that time during our sort of prime years as a band, who discovered May. And thankfully for us and Furnace Fest, he's also, the founder, I believe, of that festival. So we got to play Furnace Fest for the first time, I believe, in 2003.
Really?
And so we got to play it in 2021 when it, reemerged. And
all right, let's go back for a second with 2003 though.
Yeah.
Because that was during a time frame when, at least in my perception, almost every Furnace Fest band was like a heavy band. So how did May get roped into like a 2003 Furnace Fest?
Well, I remember that Copeland played Furnace Fest as well that year.
They did too? Really?
Wow.
As did Amber Lynn. Zach says that I sang a song with Amber Lynn. I don't remember that, but I've done that before. So if that would have been the first time.
You did. I remember you singing. I'm looking at this the Furnace Fest 2003 band list right now. So just so I can confirm or deny any memories that we might be calling up right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would trust the memory of anybody who's able to remember anything from Das Kapital. So
all my memory is just spent doing that. But the main stage was Amber Lynn, As I Lay Dying, Copeland, Dead Poetic, Further.
What a lineup right there.
Wow, This Day Forward was on the main stage. I guess it's a little surprising to me. The Agony Scene, Silverstein, Since by Man, Minus the Bear, May, and Hope's Fall. Also a band.
And only one of those bands tried to kill their wife. I'll probably cut that part out, but I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, the ratio's a little more in most years, but that year only
That's
the one.
Right, that more than most years.
Don't cut that
story's
out.
Insane. I still see. Oh, anyway. Jeez. Yeah.
I remember Minus the Bear. Zach, did Hum play that year?
Minus the Bear played that year?
Minus the Bear played that year. Hum did not play that year.
That was a different year, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to keep looking. I don't want to speak too soon. Shai Hulud played. Andrew WK. Finch. Hatebreed. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. You're correct. Hum played. As well as Mastodon. Unearth,
Wow.
Rise Against.
See, I didn't realize there were that many kind of like more alternative and emo type bands that were playing at Furnace Fest during those original years. I always assumed it was just simply heavy music, but I didn't realize that there were more kind of those types of bands that were playing. So, I mean, Chad then really did an incredible job of curating a really interesting lineup during those years, and obviously has in these last few years. But I didn't realize that there were that many kind of emo alternative bands that were playing in those early years.
I used to listen to a lot of bands on Take Hold Records, which was Chad's
Mhm.
label, prior to bringing some of those artists over to Tooth and Nail. And I think Under Oath was on Take Hold at one point, and
Me Without You's original band, The Operation, was Take Hold.
Operation. There's a band called Stairwell, I think, that was.
Sure.
So, I guess, I don't think I knew enough about Furnace Fest to assume that, like sort of regular festival goers would consider Furnace Fest to be predominantly a heavy music festival. So when we played that year and we saw, our friends in Copeland and Amberlin, and knew that Minus the Bear was playing, stuff like that, I think I just assumed the same thing. That was like a indie, alternative, hard rock, metal, hardcore, like kind of all together festival.
Right. Well, I was also 9 years old, so my memory of that festival wasn't the best.
I was 8, so
always a one-upper. Or one downer, I guess.
One downer.
What of like just such an amazing years though of that festival. And it's really interesting to see like how many people who were a part of that original run of those shows and now are still like 20 plus years later, here they are. Their bodies might be a little sore from moshing and from jamming out and headbanging, but still the same people showing up to the festival. That's pretty impressive. And then also you just get this whole new generation of people who weren't a part of the original run of Furnace Fest, and here they are now joining in on Furnace Fest and being able to be a part of that history. And it's pretty cool. And again, you see these bands that were a part of that original run. Now you get to see new bands that are able to kind of make their stake in that history with Furnace Fest. It's such a cool festival in that way, where you just see this like kind of this history unfold, and it's just I don't know. I think it's really cool, and you don't see that among a lot of other festivals in that way.
I'd be curious to see what the age kind of range is for Furnace Fest these years, because you mentioned this kind of previous generation, or if you want to call it that, and now you have younger fans coming to these shows. I'm looking at the lineup for this year, and you still have bands. Like
I think there's enough range where you have grandparents that have grandchildren that are named May, and then you've got people who are showing up to Furnace Fest that are also named May.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
But that just spun my brain. You said grandparents and May. I was looking at the Furnace Fest list at the time, because bands like MXPX are on. They're headlining. It looks like Turnstile's the youngest. They're the youngest main stage headliner, and that's on Saturday. But Acidy's Burn, Armor for Sleep, all these bands. Military Guns playing the day we are. They're a younger band. But One King Down's playing as well. They're an old hardcore band. The Insiders are playing. Strife. So I'm seeing a lot of still older bands from like our generation, and maybe a little even older
than us. Yeah.
Yeah. Drain's playing. I didn't know Drain was on this year.
Yeah.
They're younger. Vein FM. I don't know. Piebald, Project 86, Showbread. Jeez. I'm always surprised. I'm always surprised when I see the list. Every time I look at it, I'm surprised every time I look at it. Pleasantly surprised, I should say.
It's such an interesting spread of bands and age groups, as you were talking about. I'm kind of curious as to why Demons didn't get a call.
I want to know the same thing.
Yes.
When May played Furnace Fest in 2021, I did mention to Chad, I think I messaged him on Facebook, and I just was very passive about it. I was like, hey, if there's a spot, let us know. It'd be really cool. And I don't think I
I'm
did
already
that
going to
this
be
year.
there.
Yeah, right. It's like, well, May's already playing. I don't know. It's just not something I aggressively kind of sought out because I had this nightmare that I go really hard for an awesome show that would be for Demons, and like if the promoter comes back and says yes, or the band comes back, we'll put you on, and then like one of the guys in Demons like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't. I have to do this that day. It's very hard to kind of arrange like a solid understanding of who's available like too far into the future. So all I have to say, I kind of only passively go for these kind of things, but it would make sense, and I'd love to do it. There's always next year, maybe.
I thought you were doing it because you want to remain in obscurity.
Yeah, no, that's
like it'd be selling out if we went and played a Furnace Fest. Only one of
Green Day.
The best hardcore bands I've ever heard, and like just not able to get up on that stage because I'll be selling out to the man.
Well,
selling out to Chad Johnson, the man.
But for May, it's okay.
Well, Zach, when you said that it was a nightmare, and then you said you went hard, I assume like your nightmare was that you played a Demon show at Furnace Fest and you went too hard when you were performing, and then you like threw your back out or something, and then you had to like lay down and play a May set.
Actually, that'd be pretty awesome.
Are definitely a thing.
That should be the gimmick that someone does. Maybe May's the band to do it. Everyone just lays down while they play.
I would do it.
Oh, you know that
yeah.
On the Boy Genius tour, Lucy Dacus had on her tour, on her solo tour.
Yeah, she had some weird back thing, and she literally played the entire show on laying on a couch.
Laying down.
That's awesome. It's not quite as cool as like Cool Hand Luke when he's when the whole band faces the opposite direction.
Do you guys remember Cool Hand Luke?
Yeah, the drummer facing backwards.
I remember the band.
Yeah.
I never saw him.
Yeah,
I do.
At one point, it was like the entire band facing backwards.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, which I think is like the coolest, most like.
That's such a thing that was going on.
Was it really? That needs to be a thing again.
I don't know. I feel like Zayo's drummer played backwards too, but I might be entirely wrong. Like I feel like there's a lot of drummers that would just kind of set up equal. Yeah, didn't they like drummers that turned sideways on stage or like super caddy cornered?
Well, and Newsboys had like the drummer that was literally flying in the fucking air.
I've been waiting for someone to make a Newsboys reference. I'm glad we're not quite 18 minutes in and we've got that taken care of.
It's off the
Finally.
It's off the
Finally. So you guys talked about 2021. And then also, here we are, 2023. It's more than just simply a DM that you got from Chad about, hey, do you want to play Furnace Fest? So what is the story there?
Yeah, I mean, Destination Beautiful is our first album, which is, we wouldn't have signed with Tooth and Nail if it weren't for Chad. We wouldn't have even made Destination Beautiful the way that everyone knows it today if it wasn't for Chad, for Tooth and Nail, etc. And so that's the 20th anniversary of the release of that album. And we were asked, we've been asked to perform this album from top to bottom to close out Furnace Fest on Sunday. So we'll be playing Destination Beautiful. And that's kind of turned into this bigger thing. We just announced this past Friday that we're going to hit the road in the States and play about 22 shows so far. We're kind of even talking about adding a few more, but we're playing Destination Beautiful from start to finish every night. So that album turned 20 years old back in February of this year, and Furnace Fest wanted us to perform the album, and now we're doing a tour. We're putting out vinyl, repressing the album on vinyl, and so it's kind of snowballed into this whole thing. And really, it started with Chad and Furnace Fest reaching out to us and asking us if we'd perform the album at the festival this year.
That's awesome. That's a fun one. So how long is that album? Is it around 40 minutes?
I think it's longer. I think it's about 50 or so.
50? Okay.
Yeah. It says 48 minutes and 19 seconds on Wikipedia.
Okay.
So 48 minutes. You're gonna have to basically demand at least 50 minutes, right?
Well, they asked us to play it, so they have to And I think that's why they have us closing out on Sunday night, is so that way there isn't a time crunch to fit all the songs in and then turn the stage over to get the next band on. So
Does it?
We are speeding up the BPMs for each song just a little bit. So we're going to be able to cut it off at 45 minutes and then
Does it make you nervous going back to a 20-year-old record and not only like playing those songs that maybe you haven't played for a long time, but also maybe looking at some of those lyrics and stuff like that and trying to recognize where you were at in that time as compared to where you're at now?
Yeah, because like 20 years ago is like half your lifetime almost.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. I was 20 when that album came out. So I wrote a lot of those songs when I was 20 and 19, and I'm 41 now. So I think that actually when we look at the Mae discography, those songs are the easiest to play. We started to push our own boundaries a little bit with each album that we made afterwards. And so we've played the Everglow from start to finish a bunch of times on tour. And I think Zach and I would much rather relax and enjoy playing Destination Beautiful. Those songs are sometimes more guitar. They're fun for guitar players to play. They're a little more raw, I think that when I think about the lyrics, the song Last Call, which is like, I don't know, the fifth or sixth song on that album, there was a long stretch of time when Mae was super active where we refused to play that song just because lyrically it kind of felt silly. Now we just kind of celebrate the fact that someone would want us to do it. So we've had, different seasons where we connected more or not at all with certain songs on that record. But songs like obviously Embers and Envelopes and This Time Is the Last Time, Summertime, All Deliberate Speed, some of those songs are what certain Mae fans know, most, or maybe, remember at this point. Their memories are attached with some songs from that album. So I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think it's, very low pressure, because those are the songs in some cases that we've performed more than any other song in our touring history. I think we probably played Embers and Envelopes like literally 1,500 times or so,
We did a play one on the tour we did, I guess. Where did that tour end?
Which one?
The last one we did.
Are you thinking about
the one we did?
Are you thinking about Orlando specifically, or?
Yeah, we just did a playthrough one time of Destination Beautiful on the last tour we did. So it's kind of fresh in that sense. But some of my favorite Mae songs still to this day are on that record, like Giving It Away and Skyline Drive. So I look forward to playing those songs all the time anyway. So yeah, I'm excited. Like Dave said, they were fun to play. They're kind of easy in a certain sense, kind of straightforward. So it'll be fun.
Dave, for you lyrically, I think back to like when I was like 19 and 20 years old and writing things down, whether it was, college papers or tweets or whatever it was that I was putting out in the world. Facebook posts. I often think about, I do not want to see what that is. Like, I feel like it's so embarrassing. There's something that's really interesting about artists that we have chatted with that, whether it's Mae, it could be Under Oath, it could be whoever, that were putting out music at that time when you were that age. And to a certain degree, you still feel proud about it. And I feel that is something that's really rare for people who are like 19, 20 years old putting something out in the world. That seems really interesting. So anyway, like, are there like thoughts that you have around that of, I'm sure there's like parts of Destination Beautiful where you're like, well, okay, that's something or whatever. Like I was 19 or 20 years old when I did that. But how do you, more than anything, how do you relate to that part of yourself when you're 19 or 20 years old, when you're writing that album and knowing how different you are now? I find that really interesting of like, to me, it's like, I'm just so cringeworthy at 19 or 20 years old. And I can't imagine that like artists would feel maybe that much different, but maybe they do. Like maybe there is something where it's like, that was really sincere and beautiful that I did. And I would love to like kind of go back and recapture that moment of when I was 19 or 20 years old. Anyway, I'm really curious like what that relationship for you is when you go back and you sing these songs and play these songs when you were 19 and 20 years old when you originally made them.
Yeah, well, I think that one thing to consider generationally, like frankly, the way that technology has kind of changed the way that we quickly create something. Because when you're talking about being 19 and you're talking about tweets and Facebook posts and stuff, well, I didn't have access to that stuff.
Yeah, but AOL, that's about it.
I didn't even have AOL until I was on tour.
Jeez.
My one and only screen name was.
What was it like
050.
when you lived and also everything else was in black and white? What was that like?
Well, when I used to like kind of carry this tire up a hill to get to school, and then to band practice,
uphill both ways.
Both ways, always both ways.
Driving snowstorms.
No, I mean I want to actually kind of make the point that artists that I listened to that made timestamps, that made art, they were that age too. You know, like the Beatles were so young when they were
I
making
wanna hold your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
And so by the time you're young Dave at 19 years old in 2002 or whatever, I didn't have the pressure of just being able to say something quickly and maybe delete it or, wish I didn't say it later. I kind of had a long time to figure out how to write that song and how to record that song. And I didn't have a Facebook post to just, say very quickly and then like either stand by or regret 5 minutes later. I didn't have people commenting on it, so like I think the way that we observe what we put into the world is quite different. It's like I remember our manager telling me, you got to get a Twitter account, and it was 2007, I think. And I joined Instagram and started using this awful Instagram filters right away because I didn't have an understanding as like what my place was in that world, because I was used to creating things slowly instead of just quickly, making a statement like you can do all day, every day on social media and online. So I think that when we talk about Mae and when people talk about what kind of band Mae is, if the word emo ever gets used, it might sound strange to us when we look at our whole catalog and we look at the songs and EPs and albums that we put out over the duration. But I think the Destination Beautiful to me feels like a poppy sort of emo album, because what I was writing about was a breakup, a confusing time for me in a myriad of relationships with family members, friends, a church that I grew up in, a connection with my own dad. And so I was really just trying to self-express my way through what it was like to grow up in Virginia Beach and be confused by a lot of things I had seen in my church and in my family life that on my dad's side of the family, my parents split when I was really young. My dad's uncle, my great uncle, he died a bishop. He was a pastor of this mega church that had a lot of weird, manipulative, kind of cultish type stuff going on. And so
was your uncle the pastor of Elevation Church or Hillsong or something?
Well, he would have been if that was where he was today. Like this church in Virginia Beach has scandal going on like at this very moment. And
Wow.
He passed in the, I think, early 2000s. And yeah, like the executive pastor, associate pastor of the church got arrested for soliciting prostitution just a year or so ago. And
unbelievable.
A lot of money, ends up in the hands of these pastors, and the people the congregants who tithe, they're just duped all the time. And so That was literally in another world at another church that I was going to. That was like part of the reason why this girl and I, who I loved and she loved me when I was 18, we broke up all of a sudden because her family and the church got involved. And I was estranged from my dad because he left our family all of a sudden. And so like all these things were going on in my heart and in my life at the time, and I just needed to write them. And so when I think about Destination Beautiful now, I have an amazing relationship with my dad. The whole situation with faith and church and growing up in that family dynamic has, been healed through conversation and therapy. And I continue to kind of write songs that help me deal with that. And so when I go back to these old songs, I think I don't really identify with that guy, that 20-year-old version of myself, but I do appreciate what it took to get through that and write those songs, so that way I could sort of continue to level up the experience, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. That's that's a really interesting point to bring up. It's like that guy was there. He was a part of you at one point. And it's almost like you're having empathy for the life that was lived there.
Yeah, that's very true. Like if we're going to go all the way there, at one point at therapy years ago, like during 2020 pandemic, tough times for everybody. My therapist was like, you get to heal that young Dave that, needed, to be hugged back then or something. I've got a 4-year-old daughter now. And so I get to experience life being a dad, thinking about what life could have been like for her had she been in my shoes, and what it could be like if she were to be in my shoes at 18, at 28, at 4, etc. So yeah, like I'll go back to some of those songs and it'll feel very, very specific, when I'm singing like verse 2 to the song Sun off Destination Beautiful. It's like I can't make that verse about any other thing than what was going on when I was 18 years old and just sort of navigating through the confusion of that moment. But
is there, I've always been really curious about this for people who write lyrics in particular. When it's this big of a gap in life experience and all of that, when you go back to those older lyrics, do you actually, when you sing those lyrics, are you able to, like, in a lot of those lyrics, are you able to like think, oh, this is how this applies to my life now? Because you talked about like Sun, for example, of there's no way you can like think about anything else but that particular moment when you were writing that lyric.
Yeah.
But are there other lyrics where you're able to like, oh, I can like think about this in a different way where this applies more to my life now? Is that something that actually happens for lyricists?
I think so. I think that whether you're a creator, I mean, everybody's creative in some way, shape, or form. So if you're taking something from your past and having to regurgitate it, sometimes you just kind of go into autopilot and you just perform those songs. And the song This Time Is the Last Time was written about me leaving a lot of manipulative situations that were going on in that particular church that I grew up in. And so it was a very angsty, heartbroken, lonely song. And when Mae went on tour and we played Detroit for the very first time after Destination Beautiful came out, I met a guy who used the lyrics to overcome a drug addiction that he had. And I had never thought of that as anything but a way to express this anger that I had about people in the church that I grew up just messing with my life and other people, my friends, their lives. And then it just became about a man that I didn't know that would come talk to me after a show in the parking lot where Mae probably played in front of like, I don't know, 40 people.
Wow.
And he's like, look, I was addicted. And I used this song as an anthem to pull myself up. And I'm like, oh, wow. I can never really go back and think about why I wrote the song after he told me how that song affected him. It's like the scale tipped, and you don't expect that as a songwriter. I think sometimes that when the song becomes everyone else's, it can have an evolution and the impact can totally change. So, you know, what I needed to do was just express something that was really messing with me internally. My soul was damaged because of it, and then it became something of hope. And you know, and then sometimes you just I think when I'm thinking about lyrics I wrote when I was young, and then being able to specifically see life through the lens of being a father, I was estranged from mine for many years. So my dad got married, had me, got divorced in his early 20s. And by the time I would have been my dad's age, after I was born and after he had his divorce, I would have been putting out the Everglow. And so a lot of things that I did when I was younger, I did them almost in the face of what my dad would have done. I would do the opposite. And now that I'm 41, I do almost everything with the idea of I do it because I'm a dad. And so I didn't think of it that way when I was younger. You know, I would pursue the band and creativity and a career in music saying, well, what would my dad do? I'm going to do the opposite. And now I think, oh, I'm a dad and I'm a musician and I have the flexibility to be a good dad. Like I don't have to 9 to 5 it every single day and then not see. I'm also a single dad, by the way. So there's a lot of flexibility that I ended up getting to have as a 41-year-old single father that came from a rebellion to not be my dad. And then I've also been able to have those conversations with my dad about that. And so, you know, that's like a total change in the narrative. And but when I'm 20, I'm just writing about the fact that this girl I'm dating has, you know, like we've broken each other's hearts.
Right. Totally. Zach, one of the things that's interesting about you guys playing Destination Beautiful is the fact that you weren't on the recording of that album. And it's really interesting though, but you and Dave are obviously the longest members, like the longest standing members of Mae at this point. When you go back and kind of like play these songs that you didn't record, like what's your relationship with that? That seems interesting when you're playing these songs for all these years. And you're playing them live, but they aren't songs that like are on the studio album. That seems really interesting to me. So I'm curious what your relationship with that is.
I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoy playing Destination Beautiful songs to the degree that I do, is because I was a fan of the record before I joined the band. I remember listening to it because my old band toured with Mae, and that's how I got to know the guys initially. That was like 2000. Dave, I always get the year wrong. That was in 2002, right? That we toured 3. See, I get the year wrong. But I was a fan of the band. I grew to like the band more and more after I saw them play live and I knew the songs. And then, so when I was able to join the band, you know, especially in those initial years when the band was still touring on Destination Beautiful, I don't know. I only have a very vague or kind of vague concept of what it's like to be unsure of the songs you write in terms of performing them and how people take to them. I imagine that even if the songs have some sort of success, there's still an insecurity attached to those songs, and writing future songs. I get that to agree with Demons on obviously a much smaller scale. There's just insecurities that always abound for me personally when it comes to these things. I say that only to kind of make a distinction between my experience with Destination Beautiful, because I never experienced insecurities with those songs. I just knew I liked them already. So when I got to join the band and play those songs, it was kind of like fun. I was like really cool. I was like, oh, this is exciting because I don't have the pressure of, Dave wrote those songs and David Mark recorded the songs with Jacob and Rob and others, and I don't know what those processes involved in terms of people's own insecurities when it came to writing music, right? I don't know, but I don't have to worry about it at all because I was just kind of put on, and I had a great time playing those songs. And for me, who I've been playing music already, I was being able to just kind of play bigger venues, and for me, it was all exciting. I didn't really have to deal with the pressures that the band were having to deal with, whatever they were at the time, which were, I don't know if they were at all, but so I love playing those songs, and there's a simple attachment that I have to those songs that is really enjoyable, and it's all positive for me. And that changed only slightly with the Everglow, because most of the songs were Dave Still, but at that time I began writing a little bit more with the band. So even that small degree changed my relationship to the Everglow and the songs we began writing or started to write after Destination Beautiful. So for me, it's just like this kind of detached enjoyment that I got to really enjoy. And it felt kind of aloof when I'd be on the road, when I initially joined, and they'd be having these discussions, and I'd just be like, oh, well, everything's good on mine, guys. Like I'm having a good time, and trust me, people love what's going on. I think I had more of an objective position as well in those initial years. Not that I was wise with those objective positions, but it just wasn't a complicated thing for me yet. So I kind of have a pleasurable and very simple attachment to those songs still that allows me to enjoy it in a unique way that still I don't have with the other records that Mae has done, the subsequent records.
Have you changed anything? Or have you tried to like spice some stuff up? Just be like, hey, this is good, but it'd be nicer if there was this in there.
No, I still get so nervous playing songs like Goodbye Goodnight because of the tempo. Because I usually start the song, and I remember, and I always have a tendency to rush. So I have like these little things I'm still nervous about in those songs, but nothing substantial at all. I'll put like a different, note on a chord that's like, no. So, no, I don't change things up at all. I don't think so, Dave, unless I have the summer, the solo the summertime, like the kind of middle section in Summertime. I kind of do my own thing with. And that's always fun, and that's kind of evolved over the years. But other than that, I don't think so. It's kind of straightforward.
No, it's like even though Zach wasn't a part of that songwriting and recording process, Zach owns those songs from a performance perspective more than at this point someone else who would have played on that song. Sure. So if he's just got to stick to the script. And, it's not like we're not a jam band, so it's like we're not going to just go off the rails. However, if you think about it, if you listen to Destination B-sides, there's like an alternative version live of This Time Is the Last Time, and that would have been as a result of being in a band with Zach. That means more to the band maybe than the recorded version on Destination Beautiful of This Time's Last Time, because we also have This Time Is the Last Time remix that we made for B-side. So like we were just having fun, and all of a sudden the album was done and it was time to go, try to be a band and try to play shows. And Zach saved the band. Our guitar player who was in before Zach quit twice on us, and both times, or one of the two times rather, he quit by telling us that his parents were 30 minutes away and we were like in the middle of Pennsylvania. And he was like, I'm about to leave the band. Like,
well, you definitely don't want to get stranded in the middle of Pennsylvania.
No, you don't, for any reason. So, yeah, I mean, like, Zach was a savior for May at one point. So we got to let him have his opportunity to flex on his terms with some Destination Beautiful stuff.
Jack the Jesus. Zach the
If
Jesus.
there's anybody that I would love to see a flex from, it would be Zach Gehring.
And for me, it would be Jack the Jesus.
Yeah.
My dad calls me Jack, and because he mixes up my brother and my name. So my brother's name is Josh, so he calls me Jack. I'm like, yes, I just answer. The songs of, once you start playing the songs live, which is kind of always goes back to Mae's. It's kind of unique to mention the Mae's stories that they had to kind of learn to be a live band, after they recorded the songs, and so I think that's a really crazy thing. For a band to kind of go through at that level when they're so young to kind of, let's go on tour. And, the guys never toured before. And so you're playing these songs live and, how they change over the years. Once you start playing them, once you start realizing some things work better live, some things don't work better, don't work as well live. We played with soundtrack for a movie a whole lot.
Yeah.
Put like middle sections in there. So those songs definitely grew and it evolved. And I was definitely, part of that communication and conversation. But it all really took place just kind of in various moments on stage where either something happens and it works, or something's like, oh, that might be cool. So we think about it afterward. In that sense, the songs evolved with the five of us outside that studio environment. And that was really, really early in Mae's, careers, so they're still learning to be a band amongst the five of them, and then one guy left and they had to relearn to be a band with a new guy, myself. So yeah, it was interesting for sure, but again, all my memories of that era were really just kind of wide-eyed and idyllic. So
Dave, I want to say one thing that I love about Mae, and Cullen, I would imagine you would attest to this as well. There are not that many bands where when you hear the singer sing, you can hear you can hear their accent, or you can hear their actual distinctive voice more so. When I hear you talk in your just regular talking voice, I'm like, even if I didn't know who you were, I'd be like, that sounds like the singer of Mae. Your talking voice is so similar to your singing voice, and that's one of the reasons why I love Mae. When I first chatted with you, when was that? A couple years ago when we first chatted on this podcast, I was like, oh my God, that really is the singer of Mae. Your talking voice is so similar to your singing voice. There's some sort of register there. I don't know what it is.
It's just like you're singing all the time.
It's so similar, man. And I love it. I think it's awesome, and it's what makes you guys Mae. I think it really is what makes you all Mae.
I think thank you. So just a quick dad thing. I pick up my daughter Ellie today and have her Thursday through Sunday this weekend. And last time she was over, we have a cat named Callie, and Callie sees my daughter. She's a little bit, she's post toddler, but she can raise hell, make a big mess. And so the cat runs but then the cat stops when I talk. And I said, Callie will come to me when she hears my voice. And Ellie she goes just like this. She goes, my name is David. And she tried to mimic my voice. And I swear she would not have convinced you that was me.
My name is David.
My name is David.
That is epic. We need to get is it your daughter?
Yeah.
We need to get your daughter on the podcast because clearly she's way funnier than you.
She's hilarious.
Not that you're not funny, Dave.
No, she's funnier than me. That's a fact.
That is awesome. Well, I'm just saying, I really, one of the things that I love about bands, and I find really endearing about specifically singers, is when you can actually hear their talking voices come through on live recordings. And I really do think that comes through with Mae in particular. And I just really love that about Mae. Like your voice, you have such a distinctive voice, and not only is it a distinctive talking voice, but also like obviously that comes through singing wise, and I think it just makes Mae stand out versus a lot of other bands.
I was really insecure about my voice for a very long time, and I wrote a song on our last album, Multisensory, called Sing, and I wrote it to encourage myself to sing more and to get over the insecurity of my own voice. That was one of the reasons why the song was written. And so I have a better relationship with it now, more security with it now. But I have to say, I thank you for telling me that, because
well, if it matters, there's at least one person in the world that really likes it.
Thank you.
It's such a clean and pure voice, man. You should definitely be proud of it.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. All right. So we're at the point now where we're going to give you guys a choice. We are going to allow you to choose to either do top 5 bands that you should like on paper, but you don't actually like. Or what was the other one, Mason?
Bands that you do like, but on paper you shouldn't like. Or we could do the other one. I mean, we could do like most hated if we wanted to.
Or we could do most hated.
Let's give Dave and Zach a little example of each one of these, okay? Just so they can like at least get an idea of what we're meaning. So most hated, for example, I'm not going to give you my like most personal hated, but and I don't know about you, Dave, but Zach, I know you really like Taylor Swift. What we have heard from other people in the music industry, of the music industry that we interview, they don't like Taylor Swift, not necessarily because of the music, but when Taylor Swift does something in the music industry, whether it's release an album, do a tour, the whole music industry stops because of her, and they don't like her because of that. So that would be a reason why they don't like Taylor Swift. There might be other reasons why you would maybe hate an artist or maybe not like a band. We interviewed a guy recently because he didn't like the The Offspring. He didn't like the Offspring for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
So, Cullen, do you have an example of why you wouldn't like an artist?
The best thing I can think of is like, you're in the grocery store and that song comes on while you're picking out bread or picking up bread or whatever, and it like eats at your soul. You're just so angry that you have to be subjected to it.
Well, and it's a song that like you constantly hear every fucking time you're in that aisle.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll do this really quick. Who wrote that song, Walking to Memphis? Is
Mark
that
Kahn. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I hate. I don't
it
like
has
that
something to do with like you working at
can't stand
Publix
that
or
song.
something like that? Yeah, I remember that.
You mentioned grocery stores, and they would just always come on and be walking in Memphis. I'm like, God damn it! I hate that song, and my friend Logan always sings it to me. He'll always.
That's
send me,
what we're looking for.
Links to the song, but I'm not. I'll tell you this before Dave talks about this option. I don't want to talk about bands that I don't like or I hate.
Except you just did.
I don't think that's. Well, it's a song, and that
we could take songs. I mean, the songs work better for you.
I have no proximity to that artist, and that's kind of out of my generation. It's previous to my generation, so I feel like a safe distance from it. But go ahead. More options, or Dave, if you want to jump in on that one.
All right. Well, let's make it songs then. Let's make it a little more specific.
Yeah, song or artist if you happen to have an artist, but song would work too.
There's a band that is actually escaping me, and maybe if Zach talks more, I might be able to remember what it is. But like sometimes there's a band that I'm supposed to like, and I just don't get. I don't understand.
Great category.
What the appeal is. And it doesn't mean that I hate them. It doesn't mean that I even dislike them. It's just
not for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And maybe I tried, but I just couldn't figure out what the appeal was. And if I'm honest, and this might get me in trouble, but there are a lot of bands in the scene that I have been a part of as the lead singer of Mae, and someone will say, "Oh, what about that band?" I'm like, "I've never heard that band." and they'll just say, "You've never heard that band? Didn't you tour with that band?" I'm like, "Oh wait,
Oh
yep,
yeah.
I did," and I just never really listened to them the whole time that we were, like they were probably really, in some cases, even became like good friends. But I can't say that I also listened to that band at all. Never
Yeah.
have. And
what band is this?
yep,
Well, I think that that speaks to a broader kind of question I'm interested in. It's like how often we're willing to listen to new bands, and I say that, I guess, as a 42-year-old in the streaming era. And I don't want to have a conversation about streaming, so don't get me wrong, but just the saturation and
Totally.
the amount of when music becomes content, and it's like, okay, you don't listen to this, and it becomes this kind of task, and it kind of reorients ourselves to how we listen and consume music. And I think there's a dimension of that with touring, because you have a particular relationship that is multifaceted to the bands you tour with. And there are a lot of presumptions and assumptions and practices and things like that kind of go into the relationships you develop on these tours for bands to bring us out that have. So I guess I'll say it from a May standpoint, just because a band brings it on tour, I do not presume that they like May in any kind of special way, or listen to May because we're touring with them. And that's just because I don't take offense to that, just because touring's hard and it's busy, and especially with guys that are in our age brackets, your life is just so complicated and complex. Then, you'll need. It's not even like it's not even like I would be like, oh, okay, I'm going to listen to this band, but wait, never mind, I don't want to. It's more just like I don't remember to even put them on, and that's one thing I wish Spotify would adjust. I want a visual. I want a visual record shelf to kind of click. But all I have to say, I think that kind of goes into this question as well, when it comes to what we listen to or don't listen to.
I would say this.
Sorry, that was.
I'll say this. Do you remember the tour that we did that got us out to LA to make the Everglow?
Yeah.
Okay, so the two bands on that bill, we were sandwiched right in the middle. We were main support. The opener was the Plain White Tees, and the headliner was Simple Plan. And so that's in like November, December of 2004. December 2005, at Christmas, I get a wrapped present from my uncle, and it's a 12-month calendar of Simple Plan. And on the front, like before you take it out of the packaging, the one image that you see is a band photo, and one of the guys in the band is wearing a May is for Lovers shirt.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So they're repping the band. You can buy it, at a Hot Topic or at a kiosk in any mall in America kind of thing. And I don't know Simple Plan at all, even though I've already toured with them. I might be able to recognize that single that they performed at the end of every show, but at the end of every, like you get off stage as an opener of a band on tour at that time, and you just load your stuff out. You go to the merch table. You try to encourage people to buy as much stuff as you can, because it's how you get to the next city. And you sort of just pass through life. I mean, frankly, I was 21, maybe 22 years old. So I was like drinking alcohol as a legal adult for the first time in a city I'd never been to. So like, there's just things that I'm doing that mean more than like checking out the album from the band Simple Plan, or even though they literally wear, one of the members wears my band's t-shirt on their calendar, and they're so big that they can have a calendar that my uncle would find accidentally and then buy for me. And Plain White Tees, we've been friends with those guys since they were almost a totally different band. We toured with them when they were touring Stop, which was like 2003.
Called Fearless Records when I was in my old band,
right,
Dave? Was that the May Unsung Zeros Plain White Tees?
Yes.
Yeah, and they it was a totally different band.
I don't listen to Plain White Tees at all.
Those are both like really great examples of bands that would be on paper you should like, but for whatever reason, this, that, or the other thing, you don't. And that's perfectly fine. Mason and I have hundreds of bands like that.
Yep. So the on paper thing, I'm trying to think. There's a band that comes to my mind that I'm supposed to like, and I think it's an 80s band or something. Oh, here's an example. A band that I don't get, the Smiths. Just don't get it.
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
See,
I would have imagined you
I love
to have.
the Smiths.
This is a perfect example of a on paper good. On paper you should like, but in real life you don't necessarily, because I think there's a lot of people that would draw a lot of comparisons to Mae and the Smiths, like songwriting style and all that stuff. There's a lot of similarities there.
That's interesting because Zach knows that about me.
I would like.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would like Dave to spend more time with Johnny Marr's guitar playing, but that's another conversation because I've never talked to him about that. I would say that a band that I really enjoy that I shouldn't enjoy on paper would be a band like the 1975.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Would be a band, and this is more about songs, and we've talked about this in the past, maybe on this one episode of this podcast, the Guilty Pleasure one when Chris and I were on. I think I mentioned Maroon 5 as a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, we gave you some shit for that
and
one.
That's a band that's, and rightfully so. There's something about some of their songs that, and maybe it's a soft spot that I have for Song for Jane. That was the song. That was their
first record, I think.
Songs about Jane.
Yeah. Songs about Jane. And it's a difficult thing to have a conversation about because I can agree with everything everyone would say about Maroon 5 or someone that would be a fan of Maroon 5. But I think there's a lot of great pop music that's put out by artists who on paper I definitely should not like. But my appreciation for pop music is a result in particularly a focused kind of cognizant approach to liking pop music is only because I was in Mae for so long, and that's Dave's fault. I've become such a pop fan, and so I think that it goes a lot into my fandom of Taylor Swift as well. I just kind of realized that there's too much fun in pop music to ignore or neglect having because of weird ethical hangups that probably exist at the same time in your little indie underground world as well. So I'm just like, okay, let's just do it.
Yeah.
But that's an example of on paper, I wouldn't like that. Oh, one more. I'm sorry, I'm hogging it.
No, it's good.
A band that I should like, and I still try to like, because they have a lot of records, and I'm waiting for that moment where I listen to one of their songs.
Yeah.
And then a whole record that it clicks, and that's Sonic Youth. I cannot.
Oh,
totally. I'm actually right there with you on that one.
I can't understand exactly why I should listen to all their records yet, but like I'll listen to Experimental Jet Thrash, whatever that song is, or record is, or Teenage Riot. They have great songs, but as a whole, I read Kim Gordon's book. I'm like, I'm on board. No, I just haven't gone to the right record at the right time. Yeah. And that's one for me that I feel like I should really kind of have taken up by now.
I get that.
I totally get that. Yeah. It's so interesting to think about the artists that, again, like based on their sound, based on the genre, all of those things, we're like, oh, that seems to be in line with kind of the thing that I like. And then also you just, for whatever reason, can't get into that artist. It's super interesting to me that is a reality in our lives. For people who kind of, like I would imagine anybody that we would interview on this podcast because they're legitimate artists would think through that, because anybody who like doesn't think about the music they listen to, they just like, oh, that's a song in the mall that I'm listening to. That's great. Wonderful. But people who like actually care about music and are picky about it, to think through the fact that there are artists that like on paper, I'm like, I really like that sound, or I really like that genre. And for whatever reason, they can't get into it. That's an interesting phenomenon that happens.
Mm-hmm. I think it probably happens more than we realize too. Like
totally. Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest barrier for me is actually the band name. Like if the band name isn't something that like jives with me, I won't even give them a chance in the first place. Even though like people will be like, yeah, but
Wow.
they got like they got these kind of lyrics, they got this kind of like style of guitar play and all that. I'm like, yeah, but I mean that's just a stupid name.
What would be an example of a band name that would hit you?
Okay,
like multi aesthetic
multi-sensory
experience. That would be
aesthetic
a
experience.
really great example of that. That would be a really great one.
A good example would be like Slaughter to Prevail.
Oh,
Like
Oh.
like on paper that's a band that I should definitely like, but like
oh,
I hate that band name, so I'm like I'm not gonna listen to that personally. There's a whole bunch of emo bands that are like that too. I mean, I love emo music, but there's just some of the band names I'm just like I'm not even gonna give you a chance in the first place. It's stupid, I know, but it's
Well,
it's
you know
like,
what's funny is like if you think about it, I remember I used to do this. Think about the band name Jimmy Eat World.
oh, I loved it. I was also like 8 years old when I first started listening to Jimmy Eat World, so I was like, that's a cool band name. But like
So
looking back on it, I'm like, this is a terrible band name.
it's a bad band name, you know,
Yeah.
and that's one of my top like 30ish or so all-time favorite bands, and I can't get behind the band name Jimmy Eat World for a second, you know.
It's so hard, right?
And also, the acronym is just
Jew.
not a
Jew.
good idea
Yeah.
either. Just like, oh, I'm gonna yeah. So, Smashing Pumpkins, I think, is an awful band name.
I would agree with that.
But
100%.
it's just been normalized.
I think the best example is
for the last-
Tool.
in my whole life.
Tool, I think, is the worst band name of all time, but I love that band. But that was one that took me forever to get into because I didn't give them a chance in the first place. Because
I mean, I think Pearl Jam is borderline not a good band
I'd be on
name.
Mhm.
And they're like one of my top. You know, I think Poison the Well is a great band
awesome
name.
band name.
I'll always stand by that band name.
Well,
I think
on the
Wilco is a
inverse
great
though,
band
there
name.
are band names where I'm
Radiohead.
like, that's a great band name, and I can't get into the band.
Like,
But I'm like, I tried
Yeah.
the hardest to get into the band simply because the band name is so badass.
Okay, so what's an example, Mason?
Yeah.
I think Poison the Well is one of those. I
I'd be
think
with you on that.
Stray the Path is
Yeah.
one of those band names where it's just like, that's so badass, so metal. And for whatever reason, I just can't get into the band.
okay, so Soundgarden, love that band, love that band name.
Same.
Audio Slave, hard pass for me.
Yeah, same here, but I still love the band.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, there's something about man, Audio Slave's a tough one because it's just like it's literally Rage Against the Machine. It's their guitarist and rhythm section. Everything I love about Rage Against the
with
Machine.
a better singer.
Well,
and
I'm
lyric
not
writer,
like
in my
a
opinion.
massive Chris
You're
Cornell.
gonna be biased because
I'm
you're
not a
communist. So
massive-
it's okay.
Less communist. Yeah, we get that.
Well, no, I mean, I do think Rage is in their camp of their own, but I love Soundgarden. I'm not a fan of Chris Cornell as like this kind of he had these solo records
Oh
and
yeah, some of those were
some
pretty
of his
bad.
more.
Yeah.
I just don't like that approach to his singing as much, and that's kind of what he did in Audio Slave. But some of the guitar riffs in Audio Slave are still like really, really good. I just don't like the mix of Chris Cornell with that band. And Audio Slave is also not a great
Terrible
band
band
name at all.
May, what do we want to plug? You guys are going to be playing in just over 2 months now. I'm looking at the date right now. Just over 2 months from now, you guys are going to be playing, and then you guys are going on a whole tour as well at the same time. Like, what do you want to plug? Also, is there any new music during that time frame that we can maybe eventually expect?
Cool. We should, right? We should just tell them.
Tell us. Just like let
Yeah.
the black.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Let me back up for a second. One of my biggest things, one of my biggest goals in life is on this podcast, a band announces something that eventually goes on Wikipedia as like the definitive, oh, this band has announced a new album, or this band announced this new news because of the Black Sheep podcast. That's my biggest goal in life. Whenever that happens,
such a
we can
weird
quit this
goal.
podcast. I'm just
Okay.
waiting for that to happen. So if it happens to be May and right now, that would be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it. So
great.
last Friday, we signed a record deal with Equal Vision.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And so we're going to be making a new album very, very soon. And we'll be both celebrating the 20th anniversary of Destination Beautiful, while we hope to have at least released a song before then that we can play on tour every night.
Nice.
From that.
I love it. Is Zach screaming on it?
No, not yet.
No.
Not yet.
No, never.
Not yet, but we can wait for that though.
Yeah, we still got to write a few more songs, and we have to actually make the album. So, at this point when we're writing an album, I would assume, especially because of sitting here in the studio where I work on a regular basis, and what we've experienced together, Zach and I, over the years, there's less pressure to make an album now than there was after the Everglow, for example.
Yeah.
Now we can lean on our strengths, and we can own our insecurities, and we can write from new perspective, and we can write where we feel most comfortable and where we want to be the most stretched. And so we're probably going to have this album at least finished and out of our hands by the end of this year, like the very beginning of next year. We're going to be doing a lot of May stuff between now and then, because like you said, we will be touring, and there are plenty of cities in the US that we haven't announced that we're playing that we still hope to hit. We don't have any shows in the state of Texas. We don't have a Salt Lake City show. We don't have Pacific Northwest shows yet, and we'd love to hit those. And then we love traveling overseas, so we would hope to hit Europe and Asia and keep playing Destination Beautiful when we can. But we are also looking forward to a brand new May album, because we haven't put anything out since 2018. And now that it's halfway through 2023, we'll be working on a May album this fall.
Nice.
I mean, I can't imagine anything else that anybody would have been waiting for in this lifetime, even other than the end of the world.
Can we expect something like sonically very similar to the last album? Is it going to be like very like complicated and like lush, like arrangement like it was like in the last album, or is it going to be more stripped down, or do you want to leave that a secret?
No, I think that I expressed on one of our, we have, like a lot of artists do these days, we have a Patreon page where we connect with our kind of more supportive and consistent rabid fan base, if you will.
The rabid May fan base. I love it.
You got to meet a rabid May fan. Those guys are crazy.
I gotta.
No, if I could, I'd try to write and produce an album that meets up in between Plans by Death Cab for Cutie and Harry's House by Harry Styles.
Yeah, for sure. I like it.
Very
so
cool.
Poppy, but still very introspective and and forward driving a little bit, I would say. Still, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So like May can get heady, May can get technical.
Yeah,
and that's something that we've done, I think, enough of to where I wonder if we can take the sweetest, most instantaneous moments that we can create with soundscapes and then give you a song that makes you feel, and you can kind of want to listen to that album from top to bottom. May used to make albums like that, and I really would want to encourage us to try to make that album this time around.
Totally. I love it. I'm really, really excited for that. That's something that's it's going to be very, very exciting. And I know that it'll be something that Mason and I definitely pre-order. So down for it 100%. I don't know where Mason went. I don't know what happened to his video, but it doesn't matter. He's gone. So oh well.
See you, Mason.
Thank you so much, guys. You guys have been awesome. We love having you on, and we are so excited for Furnace Fest 23. Hope to come hang out with you guys a little bit before or after the show.
We'd love that. Thank you for having us.
Sweet. Yeah. Back at you.
Thanks for having us.
Take it easy, guys.